Welcome to the Scale Builders Guild. It's Tuesday. It's some sort of live show. Welcome, humans, fellow humans. Fellow humans, yes. Fellow humans. Hopefully you can hear me. Let me know where you are watching from. Check in, say a few words, whatever you feel you want to do. Tonight we're going to be tackling some styrene work on the SCX24, whatever this guy is that we've made. We're going to be doing some cleanup and some basic stuff to sort of strengthen the inside of the body. And hi from the emergency room, DK. I hope you're all right. Hope everything's okay there, whatever has happened. Harley, Josh does not like this body. Shocker, I know. I'm as confused about that as you are. But yeah, we're going to do a little bit of styrene work. We're going to add some pieces from some sprues that came with this Revell kit. There's a bunch of classy stuff that goes into this one. I'm just noticing there's like a shadow. Where is it? There it is. Anyway, we'll deal with that later. Hey, there he is. Uncalled for cab over. Well, I'm sorry you don't like it. But we're also going to do some custom styrene work if I have time, which we probably will. I'm going to have to see how far I get here. I do want to take the existing hood, or bonnet, as it's called in jolly old England, and make it work somehow. But obviously it's too long to fit there. But we'll see how far we get. Let's get started. Let's switch over to the other view. Hello, everyone. Let's get rid of me, or parts of me anyway. There we go. Much better. Now I'm a miniature me hiding on the bench. Ugh. Audio, yes. Video, yes. High as a kite from painting. Yes. Josh is wrong on the body. Yes. 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 I don't know if anybody has seen a Revell manual lately for a static model, but they're going above and beyond in the quality department, like showing you what colors you should paint, all the steps, all the things you need. It's really come a long way. So that's pretty cool. I only have this here just sort of like as a kind of a reference for some of the extra pieces, but some of the stuff we're going to cover today, all the stuff you really need for, am I going to use my Dremel? Probably not tonight. All you really need are a few sanding sticks like these ones here, sharp hobby blade, a metal ruler, preferably. Baff, baff. Ooh, ooh, Did I tell you what size hammer to hit it with? Yes, of course. Some Tamiya putty. I've got white. You can get in other colors. Varying grits of sandpaper. Styrene glue, which I keep hidden in these tires here. It's Micromark, same stuff. MEK substitute. I stick it in there so I can't knock it over as easily anyway. Harley Designs needs a timeout. We'll let him blather on for a little while. And some flush snips, just so you can get these things off the sprue. But we're going to start. I've just got a couple of tiny pieces of styrene card here. This is like 020, I think. It's pretty thin stuff. You don't need much more for these tiny little styrene static models. But what we're going to do is we're going to cut a couple strips here. And the point of these, I'm just going to make them 1/4 inch. And that's why I have this really handy cutting pad, because it's already marked out 1/4 inches. I'm just going to score this a couple of times here, and bear with me. I fell up the stairs and really hurt my finger. So some of the stuff, some of the cutting and sanding and stuff might be a bit difficult for me tonight. My finger hurts. Oh yeah? Well, now your back's going to hurt because you just pulled yard duty. So I'm just going to use some of these strips here as reinforcement on all of the panels that I've, slapped together here. So like, for example, underneath here, you can see there's a cut right there. There's another cut right there. And then there's another cut lengthwise all the way along this part of the body to get the roof portion moved forward. Robbie Bobster, thanks for the $5 Australian dues. Hey Matt, I'm building a custom race car hauler for my Tamiya 1/14th scale. Thinking about using Perspex. Perspex. Is that like what's the North American equivalent? I can't remember what it is. Not Lexan, but something else. No, I didn't fall down the stairs. I fell up the stairs. Don't worry about it. It happens to everybody. I tripped up the stairs. It's as simple as that. So just cutting some of these strips to proper length. Travis Gilmore, that was my movie namesake. Very good. So this is a really simple process. As you can see, there are some strips in there. But what we're going to do first is there's this little kind of indentation here, and I'm sure it's to hold the interior in place, and I'm not going to need that. So I'm just going to trim those away. So we've got a nice smooth surface for which these panels can bond to each other. Simple. Can we tighten up? We can tighten up a little bit more. That's plexiglass. That's it. Thank you, Canuck Chuck. Now, there are two schools of thought when using styrene glue. You can apply some to the area that you are going to be gluing your piece down and then sticking it on. And what we're doing is literally we're just going to be bonding this to the existing styrene with the idea of strengthening the panel gap, basically. And then we're going to sand and fill that gap afterwards. Perspex is acrylic. Acrylic, that's the word I was looking for. I don't know about that, Robbie. That could be a thing. But I would probably not use that. Will there be slurry? There may be slurry. I haven't decided if we're going to need it yet. So the one school of thought is lay a little bit of MEK or styrene bonding glue, whatever you want to call it, down first. The other school of thought is to let it flow into the joint using capillary action. And that's just by placing it around the edges, and it'll naturally kind of flow into the joint. Yes, Plasti-Weld is the same thing as MEK, believe it or not. So I'm going to get a clamp. Another thing you need is clamps. And the clamps will just hold that styrene in place while it completes its chemical bonding process. And we're going to repeat that process on this rear portion here. In fact, before we do that though, I am going to apply a bead of MEK right down the center on that piece back there, because it wasn't put together perfectly the first time. So this way I can just sort of wiggle it free from each other. There we go. And reset it so it's more flush on the outside edge. Have you ever had styrene dreams? No, I don't dream in styrene. Okay, let's apply a little bit more there, and then we'll just get this strip put in there, and it's going to sit in there perfectly, which is great. And let's get a little more in through capillary action. You don't need a lot of styrene glue. It does bond pretty quickly. Hello, Dan. What chassis is this going on? If you're paying attention to the Axial SCX24 Budget Build off, then you will recognize this and this chassis, because it's going on there, like so. Isn't that adorable? It's pretty cute. I'm going to pull out a little bit. It's a little bit tight. There we go. Styrene Dreams depends on how long you work with it. Yeah, and how many fumes you... Hi, Craig. Hey, Matt. This is a trashy show. Yes. Yes, it is. So we're going to let those clamps sit there for a little bit while we're waiting on that side. We've got a pretty nasty seam right here in the roof, or rough, depending on who you are. I've got a couple of sanding sticks here of multiple grits, so I'm just going to give that a quick sanding just to get some of the more extreme kind of flash out of the way there, just to smooth it all out. This side might need a little bit more smoothing because it is not a perfect fit, because it wasn't a perfect cut to begin with. I will say that styrene work is substantially easier when you're working at like 24th scale like I am here. It doesn't require as much effort or sanding or work. Psycho 13 Garage, hello. I can't wait to see tomorrow's episode of the Budget Build Off. I love them. That's great. I'm glad. I'm looking forward to it too. I don't think it's going to be a huge week for me. I'm trying to, and spoiler alert, I'm trying to save some cash. So I have more money for weeks coming up. And I know that week 4, I think we said week 4 was going to be a running video week. I'm not going to be ready for that. There will probably not be a running video from me in week 4. I'm not sure how we're going to handle that. Volts Auto installs Crawl Canada. Yeah? No, Scale Builders Guild. Crawl Canada hasn't been a thing in a very long time. I think you say that to me every time. I'm not sure why. Maybe you were a member there. Who knows? Anyway, we're just sanding. Not super exciting stuff, but totally necessary steps. Because you really want to, I want to make this look as factory as possible. Which week isn't a cheat? Sleb Dad, which week isn't a cheat week for Josh? I don't know. You should ask Josh that question. That's a good question. I have a feeling that, well, Josh doesn't think that buying a bunch of stuff and then not using it counts. I beg to differ. I think it does count. I'd like to see him defend it. What's the question? Josh, are you going to be able to fit that battery on the existing battery tray, or do you need to get a new one? So already that seam is starting to disappear. But what we're going to need to do, because no matter how much sanding you do, it's never going to be totally smooth. We're going to have to fill it with some putty. And I could use styrene slurry, but styrene slurry, which I have here, I made some more. Stuff is amazing. Styrene slurry is just MEK with a bunch of styrene dissolved in it. So it kind of makes this like styrene paste. There it is right there. Get a good look at it. It's sort of, it's a milky texture. And stinks to high heaven because it's basically pure MEK. But that tends to fill gaps better in larger models. I find that this tiny stuff, you don't really require it. So we're just going to use some Tamiya putty. This is a brand new tube, which hasn't been used yet. And you won't require a lot. And I'm going to show you a little trick here first. The greatest way to spread styrene slurry is by using a little piece of styrene. or I'm sorry, not styrene slurry. The best way to spread around this putty is by using a little piece of styrene, because it basically will conform perfectly. It's like using a spreader or a spackler or whatever. So we're just going to fill some of the gap here. We don't need a bunch. That's probably going to be enough. Let's see here. Now, I'm sure that when most people were building models, they weren't going to this level of detail or effort. But because I've kind of modified this one significantly, there isn't much that I could do otherwise. I kind of have to do this in order to fix it. But this stuff works great. Dries really fast too, which is amazing. And then it's completely sandable, which is what you want. A nice sandable surface. And it is really designed to be a gap filler. I bet you're good at making sandwiches. I am excellent at making sandwiches. I've been touted as an expert sandwich engineer. What are they called? A sandwich expert or artist? Is that what they are at Subway? There we go. That gap looks significantly filled. Okay, so we're going to leave that to cure for a little while, and we'll move on to the other side, because I bet you these panels that we've clamped in place are probably on there pretty good. And in fact, this might, once this, and styrene glue does need a little bit of time, sandwich artist, a little bit of time to actually cure for good. But we can actually go in and we'll be able to trim that off with with a sharp hobby blade, and then we'll be able to kind of sand that corner so it matches and contours a little bit better. We'll probably also fill that panel gap there because that door has been erased. Yeah. So we'll let that stuff dry, and now we can add some styrene to this side. 2 more strips. And the other great thing about these super tiny models is that you don't need a ton of styrene either. Like, the piece that I'm using here is probably worth like 20 cents, if that. Ryan, how long does what take to dry? The styrene or the putty? Because the putty will probably be dry within, like, for the amount that I'm using, probably within half an hour or so. The styrene, about the same, I would say. Now, one thing we have to be a little bit careful about is the fuel filler door. I want to make sure I leave enough room, and there is a little bit of a template there for where that's going to go. So I'm just going to stick my styrene piece just slightly left of where I would normally do. Somebody was asking what color I was going to paint this model, and I haven't decided yet. It'll probably be somewhere close to like a factory color, and I will airbrush it, not rattle can. Well, I don't know. Maybe we'll do a base with rattle can just to get it on there, and then we'll go in and use an airbrush afterwards. How much of this bodywork is going into the budget? 0, because I had all this stuff on hand. I'm just auditioning this putty, and I'm just auditioning this hobby blade, and I'm just auditioning these sanding sticks, and these clamps, and this styrene glue, and these bits of styrene. But good question, Paul. So just removing those tabs there, which I'm pretty sure were for mounting the interior to. And if that comes up later, we'll figure out another way to mount the interior. I'm not super worried about that right now. Is that a Hot Wheel you're working on? No, it's a 24th scale Land Rover. This is my hand. This is way bigger than a Hot Wheels. Save this live and then repost it during the free week. Boom, time saver. I really like that idea, Travis. That's a good one. Wonder if Josh will let me get away with that. You know what? Who cares? I'll do what I want. He can't stop me. Do you use a Tamiya scriber? No, but I have this dental pick that I use for scribing panel lines when I need to. It works quite well. Is anybody amazed that I always have like everything right at the ready? I'm just very fortunate to have a nice big drawer full of goofy tools. Okay, so we're going to lay that in there. And some capillary action around the edges just to get it to sit perfectly. And then we'll clamp that down. One other thing, if you are going to use clamps like I'm using here, make sure to use a non-reactive or non-styrene or MEK reactive plastic on the actual clips. There are some out there that are using some sort of ABS, and they will stick to this. Dolphin glaze is amazing stuff. Westmade uses that all the time. Hi, Wes. How are you? Hi, Craig. How are you? I'm over here thinking I need one of those models you to vacuum form. Oh, yes. Yeah, definitely. In fact, the Volkswagen pickup thing that Wes did most recently, I have one of those on the way. It should be here tomorrow. You'll be assessed a penalty. Okay, Josh. Well, then I'll assess you a penalty. How do you like the sound of that? All right, so now that we're on clamping on that side, let's do a little fill on these panels here. I'm going to sand with just this super light grit first because I've made a few errors and some styrene leaked through to the other side. So I just want to clean that up a little bit so it's a little bit flatter starting point. There are a few rivets there that I'm trying to avoid because you don't want to lose the detail, but may have to just for the sake of getting them in, and then I can always just kind of replicate those afterwards. While I'm over here, let's just do this side too. Strengthening the body from the inside is going to be important because considering I'm putting so much weight up top with this, I'm going to need to definitely reinforce it because it will probably most definitely roll over. Maybe not though. We're going to see what those gigantic tires from Little Guy Racing look like. Is that what it is? Little Guy Racing? Where are they? Yeah, Little Guy Racing parts. Those are big tires. Them some big tires, man. They may look a little silly on there, but we'll see. We're going to be filling that panel in anyway, so. Okay, I think we're probably good to start laying in some filler. Are these sanding files the secret to your model hands? No, I do not use those on my hands. So just going to fill that gap in again. Don't need a lot. And we're going to do it one panel at a time. Otherwise, there's a good strong chance it'll dry before it actually gets a chance to do the thing it's supposed to do. It does dry quite quickly, so you do have to work kind of fast. Of course, we have that scriber, so we can fix those panel gaps if we need to. All right. You have a mashed up Land Rover and you're worrying about big tires looking silly. It's a very good point, Wes. Yeah, I guess that should be the least of my problems, right? All right, so we're filling that panel gap line in. Minus 10 points for Bondo. Well, don't rub a magnet up against it when you buy it afterwards, because you'll be disappointed. Doug Willman, thanks for the $1.99. Putty, I was here for Slurry. Well, I mean, we could try Slurry. In fact, Slurry might be a good way to reinforce some of these panel gaps that I wouldn't be able to use Styrene on. So we can definitely try that just for you, Doug. Thank you very much for the $1.99. Is that putty better than the Testors stuff? I've never used Testors. I've always used Tamiya. So that's sort of where I'm at in life. All right, let's pull these clamps off because that's probably bonded well enough. That'll give us a nice solid working surface. And I'm going to start with 400 grit. I have these Tamiya sanding sponges, which work quite well. And we're just going to kind of give that a quick sand. It does dry pretty quickly. Which is great for live TV. I wish it was like a cooking show where I could just go and here's the finished one. Just pull it out of an oven or something. What is it? It's a miniature cab over Land Rover that's going on an SCX24. Am I going to get a resin printer? You know what? It's not high on my list of priorities. I almost bought one, but I just kind of, I don't know. I didn't see the value in it. Like, if I'm going to get if I'm going to make some accessories, I'm probably just going to make them. You know, I don't know. It didn't really appeal to me at first. Richard, pardon my noob, he's got one. I should ask him how often he uses it. So, of course, what I'll do at some point here is prime it, and we'll see how good that gap filling worked. But I think that's going to look pretty good. I'm going to go over it now with some 1000 grit, because yes, I have 1000 grit. I've got 18,000 grit. Hi, Quack. It's nice of you to call me a master. I'm hardly that. I'm definitely an amateur certainly at the static model stuff. There are some pretty spectacular static model builders out there that are probably rolling over in their graves watching me do this, but these are the techniques that seem to work fine for me, so we're going to keep going with it. Gunnar, how are you? Good to see you. Okay, that's probably a pretty good start on the roof. There's a little bit extra filler there. I'm probably going to see about cleaning that up later on. In fact, I'm going to get out this scriber here just to clean out where I've laid some in around the window there, because that shouldn't be there. And by getting rid of it now before it's completely cured, it's going to clean it up nicely for when we have to put the window in. There we go. I should have those other glasses on. Quack RC, thanks for the $1.99. 18,000 grit would feel like silk. Yes, it's basically just a smooth pad. What have I got here? What's handy? Here's an 8,000 grit pad. It's basically like rubbing it with a piece of paper. Scott, no, I won't be able to make it to East Coast Scale Challenge. It's in August, and there's still no easy way to get over the border. Well, there is, but it's not for essential. It's not an essential travel thing, so won't be able to make it. So yes, now we've used 8,000 grit. Do you bother block sanding? Dana, yes, of course. Block sanding is super important. On a model of this size, anything that's sort of semi-rigid is going to function well enough as a block sand. So you don't need to actually use an actual block. I think we may give that a little more time to cure. That's still feeling a little soft. Now, something like that, I don't know if you can see that very well, but that's a pretty big gap. Yeah, Mike, that's a good point. I used to work in body in white at the Chrysler plant, and we didn't, in my department, we just had files. We didn't use anything like 8,000 grit because I wasn't in the paint department. But yeah, I remember going down to paint and visiting some of my friends down there, and they were definitely doing stuff like that. All right, let's get that gap filled. I'm just going to use another little piece of styrene from the back, and the point of that is to give the putty something to adhere to on the inside. So really tiny little piece of styrene. This is way smaller stuff than I would probably ever do in like 9th scale, but I'm going to use a small piece just to fill in that gap from the back so we have something for the putty to adhere to on the other side. So, yeah. This is not going to be a super Isogen. Thanks for the $2. Ha, amateur, use 1 micron polishing compound. Yeah, I told you, I'm an amateur. I'm just going to try to get that to sit in there nice and level. It's so hard at this scale to work. Way smaller than I'm used to. Yeah, it will not be a long stream. Because there is a significant amount of other work that still needs to be done in order to get this budget build video cut and shot tonight. But yeah, we're gonna get as much in as we can. Okay, so rather than putting the compound on the body, I'm gonna put it on my little putty knife or putty thing, whatever you want to call it here, just so I'm not wasting it. You don't need very much. What we'll do is we'll just kind of smush it into the gap. Not pretty right now, but you know, metalwork, man. Dremel is better than a 4-inch grinder. Yes, agreed. So many that's what she said. It's the That's What She Said show. Down by the seashore. I'm glad you guys are getting the That's What She Said's in there. Thank you. Thank you for paying attention. All right, let's do the gaps on this side, and we'll probably have to do the same thing that we did along the top there, so I might as well get that little tiny piece of styrene in there now. You know, a good modeler would have just gotten all these cuts absolutely dead on perfect. So there wouldn't have to be any of this gap filling. Said me to myself. If I'm turning this into a cab over, am I getting rid of the back door? What back door? There's a hinge, but we'll probably just trim those off. And then this little door gap will be filled. Then there will be no back door. It'll just be a big solid panel. That's why we're filling all these panels. So it looks smooth. So there's going to be a hood. Yes, I talked about that briefly. One of the other things I was kind of hoping to do, and like I said, I don't know how much time I'm actually going to have for this, but I'm just going to trim it off the sprue here so we can get an idea. It's obviously too long by a substantial margin, and probably don't need those. How do they even get that to work? Oh, I see. Just snaps into place thusly. Watch me break it. Okay, we'll not go too far. Oh, that looks very interesting. It's like it's wearing a hat backwards. Yes. Indeed. Anyway, what I'll probably do is trim this and then add a little lip so it fits. Yeah, that's what I'll do. That's a step for later. Brian Harrison, thanks for the $5. Do you ever solder up your own LEDs? Ever work with the tiny surface mount LEDs like the ones that come on the Orlando trucks? No, I'm not much for soldering my own LEDs. I probably should be. I've done enough soldering in my day. I'm just not good at electronics. I don't have a degree or anything in mobile electronics, so I don't really know much about the actual like soldering and capacitors and resistors and all that stuff. So I should know more about it. I don't know enough. So maybe I'll make that sort of a personal challenge that I take on in 2022, learning how to wire up my own LEDs. Hi, Ed. Good to see you again. Hope all is well. Those flat mount LEDs are pretty cool, though. I think I've got some stuff on the way from My Trick RC. There's some cool stuff that he's doing, so I'll keep everybody posted on that. Gray Matter Fab, thanks for the $5. Have you ever seen Metal Models on Instagram? He builds all kinds of models out of steel. Very talented. I will check that out. I'll be sure to note that mentally and go check that out after this stream is over. It looks like Pinocchio. Pinocchio! The back door, not the back side door. Oh, you mean this back door. You mean like the tailgate door. No, I'm going to leave that. Why not? Or why? It's a little bit of both. All right, let's see if we can sand this now. Yeah, that seems to be working. The light controllers, Brian, from My Trick RC are amazing. I'm a big fan of all the stuff that Dan's done there. The plug and play aspect of it, I really do like, I have to say. I have to be really careful with the sanding stick because I don't want to eliminate any of these other details. Like there's a little tiny gap edge there. I don't want to ruin that. So I have to be kind of purposely careful, which is something I'm sure Josh would have a real problem with. I think this is definitely above his pay grade. We're probably going to have to go in and fill that one again. It's a little bit missing. Didn't fill completely, so we'll probably go back and do that one again. Hey Crawl NYC, how are you? Just getting up to speed on this build. How many Dremels did you go through to get to this point? I'm on my 18th Dremel. I figured we should be quiet tonight and we'll just do this all by hand instead. Just to prove it can be done. Still feeling a bit of a raised edge there, so we're going to have to do more sanding to get that panel to line up. I bet you thought to yourself today, you know what? I'm going to watch a guy sand a body for an hour tonight. That's what I'm going to do. That's going to be fun. This stream definitely not brought to you by Dremel. No way. I wouldn't even take the call. And that's feeling a little better. I'll switch to a less grittier grit. Am I going to weather this body? I'll probably give it an oil dot finish once I've painted. I wish there was an easy way for me to prime everything in here so you could see the result of this, but you're just going to have to take my word for it that it's going to be nice and smooth, invisible that we've made any modifications, and it'll just look like one solid body. Where's my scriber? There we go. Just want to clean out this line that does exist. There we go. I have tons of my own sanding to do, and here I am watching you. Ah, yes, beadlocks. Beadlocks can be fun. I like a good beadlock construction. I've got some more to do for the Night Runner. But I'm waiting on new tires. Remember last week we went through all that work of like trying a bunch of different tires? Well, I'm going with the ones that Knight Customs James used himself, which are the Arturo Trailblade 1.9, and they're like 3.95 inches tall, which is, I think that 0.10, 9, 5, 8, yeah, 0.10 inches is going to make a big difference in terms of the look of the truck. Yes, Brian, you definitely have to use a sanding block. For sure. Hearing you sand while I work on the Jeepster is very ASMR comforting. Excellent, Wes. I'm glad I can help. I'll shut up then. So working at a body shop and knowing a few things about body work. You're going to hit the whole body with a Scotch-Brite pad before paint. Big red bitch. Yeah, I probably will. Or I'll just use like a 1500 grit or a 2000 grit just to give it something to bite. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I'm just going to clean out some of these other panel lines. Man, you have to be like super careful. These bodies, well, you know, good quality, are still really thin. You can really overdo it. Tim RCC, thanks for the Australian $5 reduce. What's the best way to remove factory paint from a hard body? Could you prime over and repaint? Yeah, you can totally prime over it. Most people will actually use like some sort of paint removing thing. I think brake fluid tends to remove paint and it won't damage the plastic. Don't take my word for that. That's a speculation. I can't remember exactly. Maybe somebody out there can tell you for sure in the chat. But I find that just sanding it off, like giving it a good quality sand all over with some decent grit, and then cleaning that up with a fine grit will do just the same job. Yeah, I think brake fluid is one of the things that will have paint come off quite easily and not damage the plastic. DOT4 brake fluid. There you go. Thank you, Adam. I've never used that technique, though, so your mileage may vary. Oven cleaner. Oh, that's a good choice too. Yeah. Super clean. Yes, not simple green. Big Red Bitch. I don't think the budget build offs are actually a thing that either Josh or I could win. I don't think that's how these work. I can't remember exactly, but I think it's all just sort of like, here's the final result. This is what I spent, and here's where I ended up. Sort of like, rather than one of us winning, it's more about like two different approaches. Yeah, exactly the same methods taken to build a custom body for a mini Z. Yeah, 100%. If you're modifying a styrene body for a mini Z, of which I have many, I've got this guy right here, nice looking Audi. What is that? TTRS, I think. Pretty boss looking little car. Mini Zs are fun. I do appreciate the Mini Z. All right, I'm going to go to our phone. Make sure these panels. Foam sanding. Audi R8. That's what it is. Thank you. I was like, is that a TT? Tiny overlanding. I put an RC four-wheel drive 4Runner on my SCX10 What trans do I run? I mean, you can run anything. If you want the full interior, you're going to be kind of locked into a few more challenging choices. SCX10 you could run the GCM front transmission motor plate doodad. I've got that in my 4Runner. That's on an SCX10 so that's an option for sure. Yeah, if you're not like super keen on keeping the actual interior in its form, you can just run the regular 3-gear. Cut a hole for it. How much do you put into a Mini Z to get it completely ready to go? They come ready to run. Like, you can just run it in the stock class and you're good to go. You don't need to do anything else. Oh, how I wish there were actual... you know what? There is a Mini Z racing league here in Toronto. I should go check those guys out. These fine grits on these tiny bodies are super important, because if you don't get all those scratches out, you will see them. You will see them for sure. Oh, my panels are getting gummed up with crud. All right. Okay, I think that side is looking pretty good. Definitely better than that. You can still see a lot of gaps on that side. Obviously, there and there. If this were gray putty, it'd be gone already. Dremel that with a 220 grit flapper. Knock it right down. Yep. Knock it right down into non-existence. Anyway, that's feeling pretty smooth. We're obviously going to need to hit it with some primer to definitely make sure we've got all those details in there and we don't see anything that we shouldn't. But I think that's a good place to end on this side for today. That sanding does go a long way, though. Like, it really does help a lot to smooth everything out. I think that's going to be good. Project 1, thanks for the $5. I wanted to thank you for your advice on my rusty Tamiya lunchbox build on Instagram. It worked out well. Awesome. I will go check that out. I'd love to see how it ended up. Tag me in your next photo, please. Darwin, yeah, of course. Definitely going to do a paint job with a 2-inch chip brush. Now, there are a few things here. This body does come with what's known as a safari top. Let me see if I can show you that quickly here. You see that? This little piece is the safari top, and it's like another piece of metal that goes over the roof with the intention, I think, of like being able to put junk up there and not damage the actual roof panels. So we're going to not use that because I don't need any more weight up there, but there are a bunch of holes to fill. You can see them there. So that'll probably be another step. You can use the same sort of technique, just put a little tiny piece of styrene there. You could even get styrene rod of this diameter, no joke, and fill the holes with that. You could even use a piece of sprue. Like, there's actually some pieces here for like drive shafts and stuff that I'm not going to be using. That might actually fit in that hole. That's what she said. So there's a bunch of different options that you can choose to try to use to fill tiny holes like that. Let's get that slurry out so I can show another technique for kind of reinforcing the body here. And this is pretty handy. I think this is going to be one of those things that you're like, I need to make some styrene slurry. So I like to apply my slurry with just like let me see if I can find a clean one. I've used all of these. Nuts. They're all filthy. This one will do. Just like a barbecue skewer. Like you're making shish kebab. Kebab. Ooh, poke myself in the ear. Ah. Other one. Ow. 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 Yes, hit the like button. But this is a really good technique. Not one that gets used very often, I don't think, but because these bodies are styrene, don't you think the best thing to kind of fill gaps would be styrene? Now this hasn't completely dissolved. There's still a bit of chunkiness in the bottom, as you can see, which is good. We want a little bit more of that kind of goopiness. So just put a little bit on the end of your stick. You don't need very much. And then you can see the gap where I've attached the roof back to the door panels. It's sort of that tiny gap in there. We're going to just kind of smear that along the edge of there. And that's going to fill in those gaps and become a much stronger body because this is bonding the two pieces of plastic back together. That's how styrene works. It's a chemical reaction. You melt the plastic and then it becomes one when you add this slurry back on. Once this dries, it'll be like it was part of the body originally. And you could even go and reinforce all of these styrene strips that I've done, but I don't think that's totally necessary because I've already put a lot of styrene in there. So that's sort of how that works. It's not pretty, but it works. Do the same on the other side. And normally I'd probably do it along the roof line too, and I think I will actually go in and do that. Did I miss a question from Carson? I think I might have. I don't even see it. You and Josh both get participation trophies. Thanks, Wes. How do you know when you're done? Well, you prime the whole thing, And then when you still see gaps and you still see imperfections in the stuff that you've sanded or spent all that time sanding, then you go back and do it again. And then you go back and prime the whole thing again. And then you do the whole process about a jillion times. And eventually you get to a point where you're pleased. Sometimes you never get there. So yeah, it can take a while. But you know what? All of this process is worth it. I mean, maybe not for an SCX10 build or SCX24 build, but for like your full-size stuff that you're working on, this is really important to kind of have the knowledge and have the ability, because it'll make your model making and your trucks stronger when you're using styrene, and you want to reinforce and make sure everything's going to be nice and strong on the inside. This is the best way to do it. And because it's so messy, I'm not going to use it on the outside. I may use it in this gap here because this is a bigger gap and it could stand to use some actual filling as opposed to just putty. Putty's good, but styrene's obviously going to be better. So see if we can work that in. The other great thing about it is that it doesn't shrink back like a lot of putties do. If you put in enough, it fills the gap and just stays filled. But it can be messier than putty. So and because it's got MEK in it, it can eat through the plastic, so you do have to be careful with the amount that you use. All right, yes, miniature jousting sticks. You're done when you're sick and tired of it. Exactly, Wes. Exactly. Sort of like the jelly bean. That required a ton of slurry, a ton of this sort of work, and it was mind-numbingly boring. But I was so pleased with the results in the end. So you do it, then again, and then 10 million times more. Yes, Awesome RC, exactly. All right, so let's get a little bit of putty into these here first. Yeah, those all look to be pretty decently filled. I think we're progressing nicely on body work here. You guys are having a BEC discussion, eh? Wouldn't it be nice if you just didn't have to use a BEC? There are ways. Just get a high voltage servo like what John Holmes offers through Holmes Hobbies, and you never need to worry about BECs again. Such a pain. I hate having to wire a BEC. Okay. Did you also buy a 30,000 milliamp hour LiPo? No, I have no use for that. Josh and I, at some point, we were like, let's try to break some records. There was a record that we were thinking of breaking, and that was like the amount of RC driving in 24 hours or something. I think we kind of decided against that. One other thing that I didn't mention about the construction of this body when I was putting it together, or cutting it apart and then putting it back together, that's gonna not work very well. We need to get some more styrene in there because it didn't glue itself properly. There, we're gonna have to let that set for a little while. What was I talking about? Any of this doable with Lexan? No, none of this is doable with Lexan. Lexan is way too flexible. Any putty, anything you try to add to it will just crack instantly as soon as you touch it. Lexan is sort of like you vacuum form it once and then don't cut it apart. You can make things work. Like I once chopped up a body to make a Tamiya Bronco fit on a Wraith. This was, I don't know, 15 years ago. Maybe not that long. It's been a while. But I managed to like kind of combine two panels, stick a piece of Lexan behind, or not Lexan, I stuck a piece of styrene, I think, behind it, and then kind of put a bead of shoe goo in there to make it look like a weld, and then sprayed it over so it looked like a weld. But short of like stuff like that, there's not a lot of hope in any kind of body work on Lexan. I've never seen anything successful. I'm just taking a look at this hood. I want to see if I can mount it on there so I can kind of get a good measurement of how much I need to remove. See if this is even going to work. I'd like it. I'd like to use some of the actual hood as opposed to like rebuilding the whole thing. Already this is feeling stronger and more good, more gooder. I'm pretty sure this is just supposed to snap into place, but looks dodgy AF, if I'm honest. In fact, I'm going to trim away a little bit of the styrene on the back end here, so because it's not ever going to tilt up anymore, so I think we can kind of safely remove some material. I feel like static models will be something I do more frequently when I get older. I was asking about Bondo. Got some body filler on Lexan that's held up for a few years. Well, good for you. That's good. Use car Bondo. I have Bondo that I use for Lexan, or not for Lexan, for styrene. Okay, so there we go. It does look super stupid just like that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use my ruler to try and get, there we go, a nice perfect edge along where it should be trimmed. And then in fact, it's still going to need to come back further. So maybe we just measure it this way instead. Yeah. That stick, yes. So what we can do here, I think we'll just measure it right along the edge of the hinges on the top there. Sorry, it's hard to see all of these things. But we're going to measure that along there. Just use a pencil. It's handy to have a pencil. There we go. It's the hood that makes it look stupid. Yeah, that's what it is. All right, so now that I've got my line there, I'm going to freehand it, which is a terrible idea. Unless you're me. Just going to wing it. And I'm just going to get enough of a score line in there. This is really super thin styrene, so I shouldn't have any trouble cutting through this or actually scoring and snapping it. Just very slowly. With you in measuring, we will only accept squares. That's a very good point, Checkered Past. I should be dealing in squares for this, but I'm not. Let's see here. Is that enough? You know what? I might give it a quick. What have I got here? I might give it a good quick hit with the old saw here, hobby saw. I don't like that idea. I'll just keep hitting it with the blade instead. Get myself a nice smooth line all the way through. This will result in a nice sharp cut. We want the Dremel. Thou shalt not useth thine Dremel on thine models. There we go. Modify the grill to close up the front. Well, the grill is its own separate thing. Okay, so that's the hood, but it's obviously not closed in. So what we're going to do, use some styrene card. Already got a nice little piece of strip here that I'd sort of earmarked for this. Mike J. Ye of little faith, sir. And then what we'll do is we're going to clean that up by putting an actual lip on it. Yeah, I know it doesn't look like much there, but this is going to clean this right up. And what we'll probably do, for the sake of convenience, is take this off here and do one of these dealies where we just kind of try to line it up as best we can and then just hit it with a little tiny bit of styrene glue. I know I'm not showing you much here. Can we call it the pug? Yeah, let's call it the pug. Why not? Good name. So straighten that up. Line that up. Maybe we'll just hit this edge with a little bit of styrene glue. Actually, you know what? I'm going to give it a quick sand first, just to smooth it out. So will the engine be added inside? I think what I'm going to do, because I have all the engine bits there, is I think I'm going to mount it in the back between these two tubes. I think it'll actually fit in there pretty well. I did some quick looks. So that's going to be where that's going to go. And I think it's going to look pretty cool there. If anything, I'm doing it just to have some more detail, make it look a little more interesting. Let's see if we can get this to sit perfectly in one go. That's the thing about styrene glues. You got to work very quickly. You're making my brain hurt. Good. It's working then. So we're going to let that, I know it doesn't look like much, but we're going to let that cure for a couple minutes here. Maybe even I'll add a little more styrene bonding glue on the inside edge. Capillary action. Since the spare tire won't fit on the hood, will a tire be ousted on the front then? No. There's a room for a spare on the cage, so I'll probably put the tire there and figure out a place to put the motor. It's all going to come together in the next, how many weeks do I have left? Not many. So once that glues, Once that bonds and stays in place, I'll trim around the edge with my blade so it makes that contour, and then I'll sand it all back so it kind of rounds out a little bit more. You can trim that for now. There we go. That way you can stick it back on so you can see that it'll all be sealed up. Nice British panel gap. But the engine is there. That's why I asked about. I'm confused then. I don't know what you mean. Will the tire be mounted on the front? No, I'm not going to mount a tire on the front. Admit it, the reason for proper detail is to make Josh look bad. Since any detail he makes will just be chunks of foam board. Well, we know that Josh is not the detail guy. But I'm not doing it to intimidate or make him feel bad. I'm sure he doesn't care about any of this, but it's, I want to make this something I want to have. And I'm going to be happy driving and keeping. So, that's the reason I'm doing it. And I like all this detail work. It's fun. I like the minutia. I like fiddling with things and making this stuff look good. That's the point for me. Okay, let's clean this up. Again, probably something you can't see. It's very small, but I'm just trimming away the excess. My hobby blade. Only you could pull off a build like this. Well, I'm sure there's others. Richard would probably have no trouble doing something so bizarre. Talked about mounting the engine in the back, and usually on that style, the tire goes back there. The spare and the motor still go back here. I think it'll all work. I think there's plenty of room because there's nothing else there. I'm just got to make sure I keep room for a battery. Because let's be honest, it needs a battery. If it doesn't have a battery, then I think I've lost. My finger hurts. All right. So there's the new piece of hood. Yeah, exactly, Dana. If this is truly a Scale Builders Guild build, then it should have tracks. So now we're just going to sand this and contour it in so it's a little more in line. Blends. Stop whining about your finger. But it hurts. I'll be fine. I'll get over it. I will say, the thing about these small models is that it's my pinky finger too. This thing about these small models is that all this stuff is so much easier to do. Like if this were a 9th scale or 10th scale, catch-all for our hobby. If this were one of the bigger ones, this would take days. Jet waves. Every time I watch this channel, I spend more money. I'm sorry. Why? Am I getting more people to try static model hard body builds on their SCX24s? I think this is going to look pretty good. Okay, on to the 400 grit. I thought you always held up your pinky while doing this kind of work. I say. That's a fine-looking cab-over Land Rover, sir. I've already got an Amazon list because of this video. Right on, Adam. That's great. All right. It's looking pretty good. Looks pretty factory for a cab over. If this is what it means to be a part of the SBG, then sign me the F up. Right on. Oh, that's great. Have we already been going for an hour and 15 minutes? Wow. Ryan, I haven't yet decided on the color. I'm thinking I kind of like that minty green that the box art was. But I might go with something a little bit more modern just to try something a little bit different. All right. I'm going to call that blended. Let's get the 8000 grid out. Ah, like rubbing it with a piece of fabric. Like a military British blue. Yeah, that could work. Are we done yet? No. Not even close. Rolls-Royce metal flake. Yeah, that could be kind of cool too. Something that's going to be flashy. I'd love to find the decals. Wipe it on your shirt to finish it up. How about I just like get it moist with my finger and rub it like that instead? I'm not thrilled yet with the edge. Wasn't blended in quite well enough. There. That should do it. All right, let's attach that. There you are. Finished hood. That looks so great. I'm pretty chuffed with that, I must say. This thing is so ridiculous. I love it more and more every time I look at it. It's really starting to come together. All right, so I think that's going to wrap up basic styrene work for today. Zebra. I like that idea. Safari zebra. Or maybe we do like a toiga. Safari toiga. I like that idea a lot. I may go with that. Thank you very much for that idea, Tim. Yeah. Camel yellow. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Let's go tiger. I think tiger really sets it off. That's going to be fun. All right, so folks, that's what we did. We smoothed out the hood panel because obviously I combined this. And one of the things I did want to mention before we end, in order to kind of help with the strength of everything, when I cut this rear portion off, I didn't just do a straight cut, as you can see. I did sort of a zigzag, and I learned that from Pardon My Noob. And the whole point of that is to kind of maintain some strength throughout the body. So there's like this natural idea of like it's a joint. It's almost like when you make furniture. So it's not going to break off as easily. Anyway, we also smoothed out these panels on this side. So now it all appears to be one solid thing with the right door gaps here. So the front door is here. There will be no back door. I'll probably lose that hinge. I should lose that hinge, in fact. Yeah, we'll investigate that. And then we also built that hood out of the original hood. We just chopped the back part of it off Added a new piece of styrene, so it kind of cleaned up the edge. And yeah, that's it for tonight. If you want to do all this stuff, you just need some styrene card. I used 020 for tonight. Nice sharp hobby blade, thusly. Tamiya putty as a filling agent. Strong metal ruler. Some snips. I used this dental pick to help fill or help get the material out of the panel gaps. And then I also made some styrene slurry, which is just MEK and styrene scraps melted in a sealable container. Oh, and clamps. You might need some clamps for when you do that styrene work. But that's about it, guys. Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m., will be episode 3 of the SCX24 Budget Build Off, which I am going to film right now. And then we'll see you again tomorrow night, 9 p.m. for live stream takeover with myself and Josh from Harley Designs. Thanks for all the questions. It's been really awesome. I hope you guys learned something today. And it's going to cost you $55 on Amazon for all the things I used. So there you go. Want to thank Robbie Bobster, F. Doug Willman, Quack RC, Isogen, Brian Harrison, Gray Matter Fab, Tim RCC, and Project One. Stephen Morgan, Bronco Project. Definitely coming back to that soon. I have made some bold choices that is either going to put me over the top or get me in a lot of trouble. But we'll see how that goes. In the coming weeks, I will get back on that one. As soon as this SCX24 project is complete, or at least this sort of more difficult stuff. Thanks very much for watching, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow morning and evening. Have a great night. Thanks again. Love you. Bye.